What can we do for you today?
Well, I'll throw this out there. I was reading in the making of that you guys had wanted to work together for quite some time. So what made you guys want to collaborate, and why this particular project to do it on?
I started years ago making behind-the-scenes documentaries, EPKs, for movies. And I interviewed James a bunch of times when he was a rising young star in the UK. Mm-hmm. We kind of got on and hit it off. And I said to him, I also wanted to make movies. And we had a project which never quite got off the ground.
Yes.
And then when I'd made a couple of films and Kane came along, it just felt like I'd plug into James and bring him on board and talk to him about it, and it sort of worked out okay.
And it was a big ask, because I hadn't really done anything as big as this, I guess, in terms of what was required of me, because it's a hugely physical part. And I'm delighted that he trusted me with it, because it was something that he'd written and he loved, and so I really didn't want to fuck it up for him.
Yeah, and I don't think he did. So it worked out well for all of us.
Michael, what were some of the challenges in adapting Solomon Kane to the big screen?
Well, if you know the literary history of Kane, you'll know that he comes from a series of pulp short stories written by Robert Howard, who was the creator of many famous characters, most of all Conan. I was a fantasy fan, so it wasn't a big ask at all for me to get involved, because I wanted to do this. I knew the character, I wanted to make fantasy movies, I wanted to make a serious-minded fantasy adventure, and Kane, of all the pantheon of characters available to me, seemed like one of the best to work with. The producers were very receptive. We all sort of together realised that we perhaps needed to do an origins tale for him, because in the stories themselves, he's very much a fully formed figure. And Howard just gives him his adventures, and the poetry explains a little bit about his backstory, and there's some lines in various short stories which I could mine and expand upon and adapt and say, okay, I believe we can give him a trajectory from one kind of character to the Kane that we know on the page. So that was exactly the objective, was always to do that, explain why he is who he is, and at the end, when he rides out of the movie at the end, he literally rides into the pages of Howard's stories, which is what I always wanted to do. Now, I knew I was going to run into a little bit of not criticism, but intense interest, shall we say, from the hardcore Howard fans. But I did it with as much respect and as much kind of truth and accuracy to the characters I could manage. And on the whole, they seemed pretty receptive about it, so I'm very gratified by that.
Okay, I guess my question is, Mr. Purefoy.
Yes, sir.
You've been quoted as saying that Kane kind of starts off as like a greedy pirate, a plunderer, by the beginning of the film,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes through a retirement of sorts, and by the end of the film, he becomes the Kane that we
Mm-hmm.
all know him to be, in terms of his potential. So, was that what drew you to the character, that character arc, that drastic character arc?
Yeah, I was, what drew me to the character was Michael asked me to play it. That's what drew me, but it was, beyond that. It was just it's a great arc. It is a great arc. He is, I think actors are often drawn to characters that start the thing at one point in that character's life, and they change in front of the audience's eyes into something else by the end. They've grown, they've learnt, things have happened, they've learnt from those things, they've become something new at the end of the movie. And he's got a huge arc, He's a really bad guy at the beginning of the movie, really bad man. And he becomes stiller and more zen, easier with himself, until finally he rides out of that shot at the end. And we know that he's going to be causing trouble for bad guys from that moment on. Yeah. And that's a lovely thing to have, it's a cracking arc.
Yeah, but you have to go through an incredibly punishing journey to get there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not every day you get crucified, is it?
Which kind of leads into my next thought. Usually when we do these big movies with these big scenes and a lot of CGI and a lot of effects work, you run that risk of the story getting lost somewhere in there. So what was the process for you two guys in making sure, okay, we keep our character involved and we don't go too big or too over the top here?
From my perspective, it always was about the character first. Character, get the story right. The CG and the creatures is kind of an adjunct to telling that story. I think a lot of movies do it the other way around. They have all these resources and they make the visuals come first. I figured it was character first because it's called Solomon Kane, that it's about him and we travel with him all the way through. And I figured the best possible special effect I had was James's acting. That was what grounded it, and that's if I knew I couldn't create hordes of 10,000 warriors, I just turned the camera on James because he could perform everything I ever needed. So yeah, I mean, yes, the movie's got special effects, it's got monsters and demons and creatures, because that's what this world is. That's the movie that I wanted to make, because those are the films I love. But the truth of the matter is if you're not interested in the character, then you're not interested in the movie at all. So that was the question was, what was the most important thing, and it was the character first. Always had to be.
And also, there really isn't that much special effects in the movie.
No, a lot of it's really.
I think that's one of the things that people responded to is, when you see Kane fighting a man on fire, the man is on fire. That's one of the most alarming things I've ever had to do in my life. I don't know if you can imagine having to do that. There was a scene we shot, a take we did where the camera was above us, and so there was nobody else in the room. So obviously, when you're making a movie, there's hundreds of people in the room normally, but because there was nobody else in the room, there was just me and a man who was on fire coming at me. And he's one of the best swordsmen you've ever come across in your life. I'm pretty good with a sword, but this guy is phenomenal. Phenomenal. And to be able to do that kind of stunt, people, the stuntmen talk about, the full body burn all the time, but the full body burn plus remembering 70, 80 sword fighting moves simultaneously as your mask is melting down your face and you are inhaling flame. Yeah. He inhaled a flame, went up the breathing pipe in his arm, up the pipe and into his mouth. But continued. But
the very best thing is that when he was on fire all the way through, and James made a little mistake.
I made a little mistake. I got a little anxious, because I'm not hard. That I got a little anxious, and I forgot. Was it meant to go here, or was it meant to go there with the sword? And I went there, and I should have gone there. And out of the flame, this hand came, and he just went. How cool are you?
Yeah. The toughest man in the world.
Really tough. So I think people respond very well to that. I think that the violence in the movie is very visceral and real, and it doesn't feel sexed up or sexy or overproduced or over-designed.
It's not stylized.
It's not stylized. Yeah. It hurts.
Impactful.
Like it should.
Yeah.
It should feel like it hurts.
Stuff matters. The thing is, stuff matters in this story. It matters to the characters, and hopefully it matters to the audience as well. And I think that's the only thing you can do is you can say, fantasy adventures have traditionally been treated in a kind of slightly silly offhand way, and I wanted to make a movie where stuff really mattered to the people on the screen, and if it matters to the people on the screen, and Pete Postlethwaite's character is a man of faith himself, and Max von Sydow has this little journey which we understand once he tells his story, and Kane's character in the middle of all that is learning who he really is through this incredible punishment I put him through. Everything matters, and if you can get an audience to relate to that, even in this fantasy wraparound, you've got a big mythic classic story to tell.
Yeah, and people buy it, they just buy into it. My problem with a lot of those 80s kind of fantasy movies is that I felt like the actors in it were trying to be cool. Trying to look cool, And, it comes across, it's just come on. I don't buy a word, I don't buy a thing that you're doing. You're just trying to look cool. And I really didn't want to try and look cool. I just wanted to just try and beat these people on the screen, just stop them trying to kill me. So I think that's a big difference in the way that we approached it. There was no sense of me trying to look cool in the movie.
James, everyone's been talking about you this weekend largely because of the pilot for The Following.
That's very sweet. I don't believe you for a second.
Seriously, all these different panels, people they've been randomly bringing you up.
That's very nice.
Sure. Is it more fun to play a character like Solomon Kane that might start off bad but kind of ends up on a more honorable mission, or one that seems so irredeemably villainous like in The Following?
Well, they're just different, aren't they? I think there's neither one is better than the other. They're just different parts that require different things and different ideas and different skills in a way. Yeah, the guy in The Following is just monstrous. People have been very nice to me during the signing. They're not going to be like that next year. Really not going to be like that. I had a guy today during one of the signings, and he went. He said, "Hi." I put his poster in. He said, "It's great to meet you." And I said, "Good." And he said, "I saw the pilot." I went, "Good. I'd kill for you." Oh, okay, yeah, fine. Moving on now. Moving on. I'd kill for you.
That's got to be the tagline for the poster.
You know, because it's about a guy who starts a cult of serial killers. It's very fertile ground over there. Serial killers, believe me. You know. So yeah.
I actually have to pull James because he has to go get on a train, but we can have a
Sorry.
few more minutes with Michael.
Are you wearing lenses?
I am.
Oh, I was going to say you've got the most amazing coloured eyes I've ever seen in my life.
No, they're pretty striking.
It's part of my character.
Yeah, it's fantastic. All right, well, lovely to meet you all.
Thank
Well, he's getting on the same train as me.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Guys.
Have we got anything else?
Yes.
Quickly
What-
to say. Well, how long have we got before we get on the train?
-2 minutes.
Thank you.
All right.
Negative 2 minutes.
Did you want to get on the 4 o'clock one?
There was something that happened in regards to the fighting within Solomon Kane's. My understanding that you played heavy metal music. Was that
Oh, well, yeah. You know, it's all part of trying to make the fights as visceral and real as possible. So, and I try to play the sword fights in one take. So he has to learn everything, and he has to fight 20 people in a go. So it's a big deal. And to
It
keep
requires
the
enormous energy to do that because you really have to feel the adrenaline of how am I going to get from here to here when you've got 20 people to fight to kill on the way with your sword. So I suggested to
Yes.
Mike that
Let's get the PA system
let's
out.
get the PA system out. Let's get Motorhead, Ace of Spades, and really crank it up. And that's what we did.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the energy from the takes without the music to the takes with the music is incredibly different. To the point where everyone's getting a little too excited.
A bit
occasionally.
Is
overexcited.
that how the accident happened?
Yeah, we had several accidents. I mean, I nearly got the top of my head taken off like a boiled egg. I put a sword through a man's cheek
On the Motorhead take.
on the Motorhead take so that he could feel the tip of my sword on his tongue. Check that out. Yeah, and I drag him along because there's a scene where by the moment where I've got him on the end of my sword, and it's maybe 1 inch into his neck. And I take him along with me, and I wasn't watching, and actually the sword had gone through his cheek. His fault. He moved his head in the wrong place. No, don't move your head in the wrong place.
That's what rehearsals are for.
Someone said to me recently, did that mean that you were using real swords? I went, yeah. I went, you don't use real swords on movies? I said, well, we did.
I think the edge was taken off, but he was just pushing it really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.
Well, now it's time to with an non-stop day. It's safe to say we'll have some fun today on Geek World Radio.